I'm more saying be about it, don't talk about it. And so leading by example was the best thing I could do, the most resistance, the most revolutionist thing I could do.
My intuition is telling me there'll be better days. Yeah. My intuition is telling me there'll be better days. I like this tone. Yeah. My intuition is telling me there'll be better days. I sit in silence and find whenever I meditate, my fears alleviate, my tears evaporate, my faith don't deviate, ideas don't have a date. But see, I'm growing and getting stronger with every breath, bringing me closer to heaven's doors with every step. As we speak, I'm at peace, no longer scared to die. Most don't believe in God, and so they terrified. It's either that or they be fearing they gon' go to hell. Asking the Father for forgiveness got them overwhelmed. As if he's spiteful, like them white folks that control the jail. See, I believe if God is really never judge a man, because he knows us all and therefore he would understand the ignorance to make a take his brother life.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Akintunde Ahmad. I just go by Tunde. I'm born and raised in East Oakland, California. Spent the last 6, going on 7 years on the East Coast in New York and in Connecticut. I did my undergrad at Yale, majored in sociology, and then went to Columbia in New York and did a master's in journalism and film. And now I'm back in Oakland, continuing with journalism and film, working on some projects, looking at the different, social sectors and public sectors in Oakland specifically, and across the nation. And just doing my part, finding my way in telling the truth and telling true stories. I feel like one of the things about growing up in Oakland is that you get exposed to so many different things at a young age, whether that be through just going to public schools, playing sports with different organizations, whether it be AAU basketball or Babe Ruth and USSSA baseball. And so being from here, I think the social smarts and the cultural understanding that we have is something that a lot of folks take for granted. Because when I left Oakland to go to college and went to Yale and was in New Haven, Connecticut, and was just exposed to so many folks who had really been in a homogenous society of went to prep schools with everybody who was wealthy, and there was a couple of people sprinkled in who was, had scholarships and things like that. But I don't know, I just think our outlook and our understanding of life and being from a place with so many different backgrounds is something that I'm forever grateful for, and something that shouldn't be taken for granted. I think one of the major things about my upbringing that I'm kind of sad to see has dwindled away is actually Oakland Babe Ruth baseball. So I'm the youngest out of 6, and my older siblings all grew up and played Babe Ruth baseball at Greenman Field, or Havens Court as some folks call it, on 66 in East Oakland. And so being there, it wasn't just about the sports, it was more so about the community building. So every Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. in the morning until 7 p.m. at night, the field is full of people from all different backgrounds. I mean, it was predominantly Black and Latino folks from East Oakland, but it was a lot of folks from other areas as well who played with us. And it was one of those things where sometimes people don't realize how much impact a youth sport like this has in the community. And what I mean by this is, of course, baseball being a sport that is, historically being predominantly white, but also is just difficult to maintain consistent funding for, and it's difficult to maintain field upkeep and all these things. It's amazing that we had such a staple in our community to be able to get exposed and play this sport. But also, it was one of those things that brought people together from a standpoint of everybody who I met who may have had more money than me or less money than me, or was dealing with certain social issues that had to do with poverty or had to do with race or immigration or any of those things. It forced us to be in this space together and just learn from each other's experiences. And so I know a lot of folks in our community are really sad to see the numbers decreasing, and it's a lot of factors that have contributed to that, from prices in our area being so high that we can't afford to live here, and so there's no youth being raised in the area who play baseball, to management of city government and upkeeping fields to, just upkeeping the league and having enough coaches and volunteers and things like that. And so, one of the things that I hope to play a role in is kind of reviving that and documenting our experiences of playing in that and what it'll take to make sure that this next generation of young ball players can continue that league and continue the tradition that brought so many of us together. So I grew up going through all Oakland public schools. So my mom actually was a teacher in the Oakland Unified School District. So I'm from East Oakland, but I went to elementary school in North Oakland at Chabot because that's where she taught at. So that was, what was most convenient. And that was a more affluent area, and it's crazy just to see how different funding was for that school and all the resources they had compared to what would have been my neighborhood elementary school. It would have been like Howard or Parker or Burkhalter or somewhere around there. And then middle school, I went to Montera, which is like the highlight of my life. I don't know if it was just the age I was or just how many people that I just maintained consistent friendships with and relationships with over these years. But I mean, for one, we call ourselves the best middle school in California. And we say that because we never lost a game in all 3 years. And we played outside of the, just public school league. We played in some AAU tournaments. We traveled to other Bay Area cities like Lafayette and some in Alameda, some in Castro Valley, San Leandro, and just play. But it was just so many people, a lot of whom went on to play college basketball and now are venturing into the professionals in basketball. And it was just one of those things where I'm like, every day after school, we all made sure we took care of grades and all those things and held each other accountable and, had folks to actually lean and depend on each other to make sure we were doing right, because, when it came to sports, it was the same thing. We spent our hours working out, starting in middle school, really working out a lot, practicing every day, even when we didn't have formal practice. Transitioning into high school, then that's when we started going to the gym and, going places like 24-hour fitness or having private workouts at our different high schools and things like that. And, simultaneously while playing sports, school was somewhat what came easy to me. So all throughout middle school, I was all straight A's, all 4.0 student. In high school, it was pretty much the same thing. And I say that to say, laying the foundation and establishing good habits at a young age just makes everything else so easy as you go along. Granted, there's so many other factors to consider. And I say that meaning growing up in Oakland, you can have everything going for you, be doing great in school, and then some incident come up that just throws off your focus. So for me in high school, mine was, a bunch of different things. One, he survived. Disclaimer before I say this, my brother was shot when I was a junior in high school. But my sophomore year, he was actually arrested and he was out on bail while he got shot. And it was just really exposed me to, how harsh and how cruel the system is. Because you look at me and you see somebody who graduated from 2 Ivy League schools and is on the, what they would categorize as like the textbook successful path. And on the other end, I know my brother, I know him better than anybody out there, and I know all of his capabilities, his intelligence level, all of that, and to see how he got caught up in a crime-baiting scheme that was designed by the government to, trap folks that looked like us. It was a sad thing to see, but it didn't break my focus. It really just gave me more motivation to stay steadfast to the path that I was on, and just kind of be that, I don't want to say like pillar of light in the community, but really just, I'm more saying be about it, don't talk about it. And so leading by example was the best thing I could do. The most resistance, the most revolutionist thing I could do was show folks like, look, I'm from East Oakland. I'm a product of all public schools. I never had any private tutors to help me out. I never had any, extra resources and all of this other stuff that a lot of folks need to do things. I'm showing, there's so much untapped potential in our communities, and I guess to make my point succinct and to really bring it all in, one of my favorite quotes that I live by and that I try and get people to understand is they say that genius is evenly distributed by zip code, but opportunity is not. And so, if more folks dump more resources into education funding and actual programs that helped us, not ones that just, spew out jargon and use a couple of people who make it through and highlight them, or use my story and say, look how good we're doing. But I'm saying, no, get the folks who are at the worst of the worst, who, are coming from single parent homes or foster homes, who are going through extreme poverty. If you can bring those folks up and dedicate resources to them, then that is what shows the success of a program. And so, that's how I came up, and that's what led me on the path of where I am now. So after high school, I maintained that standard of academics that I just kind of held myself to. I didn't really know where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I had one brother who went to San Jose State for a couple of years, and then my sister had went to Spelman and graduated. So that was my only really exposure to college on a first-hand basis, outside of the local schools and stuff. And so I was playing baseball in high school. I was doing well. My junior year, I was MVP of the league for my league, for the Oakland League. And then my senior year, like 6-7 games into it, I ended up getting injured. Sat out most of my year, but I still had, aspirations of playing baseball. And the good thing about it is that since I was, on that path of doing well in academics, I wasn't reliant on athletic scholarships to get me to where I needed to go. And so I ended up just applying widely. And I was like, okay, I've never been to an Ivy League. I don't know anybody at any Ivy Leagues, but I know what they are. And folks are saying that, I have the test scores and the GPA to go there. So I'm like, forget it, I'm gonna apply. And then I ended up getting in certain places. And so I was open to, trying anything. So when I visited Yale, it was just made the most sense for me to go there. At the time, like I said, I was still playing baseball. I had highlight tapes that I showed the coach, and he was like, you could come on as a recruited walk-on. And so I wasn't like on a, scholarship athlete, but it didn't matter to me. It was on the team playing just like everybody else. But that was short-lived. So I got to Yale, transitioned into college. It was much different waking up every morning at 6 to do morning workouts, and then transitioning to evening practices and, spending a lot of time with just the team and, balancing the other things that you needed to do. Of course, schoolwork, but then, your social side of things. And then one of the big things that was different for me was that I was the only black dude on the team. It was all white, it was one Asian dude, and then it was me. And so it was very different from what I was used to, because even, any of my travel teams and Babe Ruth and things, it was just a diverse community and a big mix. So that was, it was different. And it was more of a cultural thing, because it wasn't just about like race and things like that. It was about the type of folks. So it was a lot of, prep school people and elite folks on the team. So it was a transition to be spending that much time with folks that, we didn't necessarily see the world in the same way, and I'll leave it at that. My upbringing and the things that I experienced in Oakland really sparked my interest in dedicating more time to academics and studying stuff that was relevant to me. And so that's what really made me study sociology and get my degree in sociology, because I really wanted to understand, like, look, I know certain things to be true based on my experience. I know it's people in my community who are most likely to be the victims of gun violence, most likely to be incarcerated, most likely to go to the poorest schools and have the worst funding for these things. And I know the history about where we came from, but I wanted to better understand the links between those two, to just track it and see why things are the way that they are today, and understand that knowing and having a deep understanding of that enables you to then take the proper steps to know how to change it. And so me majoring in sociology and studying inequality and studying race and culture and economics and the overlap of all of these things and how society interacts and is formed really was a formative experience for me, because it's not something that you learn, you know, in high school and middle school. It's just something that you kind of develop an understanding of based on your lived experience. And so by the time I got to be a senior, I had all these experiences. I had worked different places. I had done some stuff in business, had done some internships in law and civil rights and all these different things. And so I'm like, what do I really enjoy doing and what would I like to do more of? And one of those things was storytelling. And so I thought about it from a context of, okay, storytelling comes in many formats, especially in today's era. You can write, you can do audio and podcasts and things, or you can do video, from documentary film to, you know, feature films that are fiction. And so I ended up going to journalism school at Columbia and doing their journalism documentary specialization, because I wanted to learn all the skills. I wanted to learn how to make films and tell true stories, in addition to bettering my writing skills. And so, you know, after that I spent a year writing about media and its influences on our public perceptions, and just, you know, how it controls every narrative and we may not even be aware of it. And now I'm, you know, embarking on my own journey to do my own reporting in the city of Oakland, and focusing on a lot of different things, from police misconduct to civil rights to, you know, all the relevant things that are going on right now, from where should funding go in the city, and how do we get better schools and education, and how does that relate to funding that, you know, police officers receive or that city officials receive. You know, it's just the beginning of the journey. For me, it's really just the tip of the iceberg, because every day I'm reading more, I'm learning more, my perspective is shifting, and, you know, the day you stop learning, they say, is the day you start dying. So we'll see how everything comes out and transform, but, you know, I'm here to enjoy the ride, and I'm here to try and make a positive impact and a change, not only in the place that I came from, but, you know, any place that I walk. And that's what I try and live by. So one of the things I was most fortunate to have the opportunity to do while I was studying in college was actually travel and study abroad. And so the summer after my freshman year of college, I went to Spain. I was in Bilbao, Spain, studying Spanish and, you know, just increasing my language skills. And then the fall semester of my junior year, I actually spent the whole semester in Accra, Ghana. And so I had never been to the continent of Africa, let alone the actual region where my ancestors came from. And so I was like, it's an opportunity for me to go there for 5 months. Like, when else in life would I have the chance to spend that much time there and really immerse myself in the culture? Because I think it's one thing to go for, you know, 2 or 3 weeks on a vacation, but it's another to be in it day in and day out and actually have to adjust your whole life to the lifestyle there. And so I went, and I mean, I definitely enjoyed my time there and just learned so much about history, about colonialism, about the culture there, and just saw so many parallels in the culture that I grew up in, being, you know, African American and raised in the States versus over there. And, you know, a lot of the ways that this was expressed was through music and art and fashion. And so the music scene was crazy, going to concerts out there and, you know, seeing the live performances, as well as the art. And then from the fashion standpoint, that was something that stuck with me and actually sparked my interest in creating my own brand, which I am currently in the process of launching. And so while I was out there, I realized that tailoring is one of the main occupations of like the working class, I say, out there. And so what people do is like a lot of families have a specific tailor that they work with or whatever it may be, but it's like anywhere you can find folks who will make custom clothes for you, and everything out there is made to order. Like, folks don't buy pre-made suits or, you know, pre-made garments. It's like, no, you go to the fabric market, you pick from the endless amounts of materials, and that's not just, you know, African prints and Ankara and Kente prints, but that's also like different types of wool, different blends of cotton, different you know, types of woven fabrics, different types of leather, whatever it may be, and you just sketch out the idea that you want, you get your measurements taken, and then they make it for you. And so that really sparked my interest and bringing that type of individuality and design to the States, because there was so many designs and patterns that I came across that I was like, man, this is something that I really wear regardless of where I am. How can I build a brand around that? And so one of the main things that I'm proud about in terms of developing this fashion line and this brand is that from start to finish, it's all African made. And so the fabrics are actually sourced from out there. Some of them are hand woven and hand dyed. And then my production and manufacturing is also done out there by some tailors that I met when I was, living out there. And so I say, be on the lookout. It's called Ade Deye. Both of those words mean royal. Ade is my middle name, and it's also the word in Yoruba, the Nigerian language, that means royal. And then Deye is the tree word, which is a Ghanaian language that also means royal. And so, I'm excited for it. I just got my first production is here. I'm gonna start marketing that and doing all the photo shoots and that, and you'll see all those things soon. But if you're interested in supporting, or if you're interested in learning more about the folks that I work with and how you may be able to start your own brand or whatever it may be, get in contact with me for sure, because it's something that I'm building and developing, because it's more than just the fashion. It's about how do you make something that's sustainable, that's ethical, and that's not exploiting anybody in the process. And so I'm very happy about this, and it's something I continue to build and maintain. So currently I am working on this long form journalism piece that's part of my fellowship. So I'm a fellow with Type Investigations through a program they have that's called the Ida B. Wells Fellowship, and they fund emerging voices in journalism to actually do a long form investigative piece. And so for me, based on my experiences and things that have just shaped how I view the world, I wanted to do something related to police misconduct in Oakland. And so I used to work in the summers for the law offices of John Burris, and one of the things that I realized in working with his office is how often officers were repeat offenders of police misconduct and brutality. And so in seeing this, it just didn't make sense to me why officers could, do something major that would get them fired from one department, but then they would just jump over to another city or another county and get hired over there as if nothing happened. And so this project is I can't give up too much, because I want to tell my whole story and not have y'all read it when it comes out, but it's focusing on this, and it's just looking at more or less why is this the case, who is to be held accountable for it, and at the end of the day, how do we make our communities safer? And it's not, to me, it's just kind of like a no-brainer, no question thing of like, who wouldn't want the community to be safer? Like if you have somebody who is fired from one place for being that foul in their actions to the point where they couldn't stay with the force, then why would another place hire them, especially when there's no shortage of folks who qualify to be police officers? And so I'll leave it at that for now, but if you follow me on social media and things, there's going to be periodic updates coming out about it. But I'm excited to be working on this while I'm here, and amongst a host of other things. I'm going to be very vocal in the community and kind of hit the ground rolling. Right now it's all digital because we all locked down, but when things start opening up, you might be seeing me out more and kind of talking about these things. I'm one of those people that I have general plans and goals, but not very specific. So when it comes to where I see myself in 5 years or 10 years, the main thing I say is, okay, I have a couple things I want to do. I want to make sure I put out a doc film that focuses on the issues. I cover issues of inequality and holding systems of power accountable. I'm working on this book right now that's co-authored with my brother about our experiences and how, how is it that two brothers who grew up in the same household and had access to the same resources and went to the same schools, etc., ended up going on what many folks would call two very different paths. You know, with me graduating from these top schools and him spending 4 years in federal prison on top of being the victim of gun violence. And so it's a lot to unpack there, and we're actively working on that, but I want to publish that, you know, within 5 years. And then one of the other things I just want to do is, of course, get to that level of success where I can, just live comfortably, be able to travel, be able to continue to tell stories about my travel and my experiences, and continue to write and make films, but also make sure that everything I'm doing is scaling up the impact. So while I'm starting off, you know, locally in Oakland, of course, where I'm from and where my roots are, I want to make sure that my voice is heard nationally and globally, and that not in the interest of self and self-promotion, but more so in the interest of inspiring other folks to do the same, and also, you know, just instilling that hope in folks, instilling that courage in folks, and showing people that regardless of what it is that you're going through, regardless of where it is that you come from or what you've been exposed to, with the right attitude and with the right tenacity and with the right grind, you know what I'm saying, you can actually work to relieve yourself of the situation that you know, you were born into. And so yeah, that's just my main goal, of like making sure I stay steadfast and on this path, but also just staying humble in the process, and you know, continuing to give back to all the resources and community that has poured and dumped, you know, all of this love and energy into me, and just give back 10-fold, 20-fold, 30-fold, because at the end of the day, that's really what it's about for me. It does me no good to, you know, reach whatever goal of success, however I define that for myself, without making sure that I'm making that success more accessible for the next generation. And yeah, that's all I could hope for these next 5 to 10 years. So I say a message that I would give to my younger self, or just any young person who is, you know, finding their way in this world and understanding what path they want to take, is really learn how to turn your hobbies and your passions into a career, and, you know, something that can sustain you. There's a lot of people who may go through life and, you know, they may be making cool money, or, you know, making a living in a way to support themselves, but they're not actually doing something that they are loving, and it's draining them on a daily basis. So, you know, whatever passion you may have, whether it be, you know, for us for so long it was, you know, sports and athletics, for other folks it's music, for other folks it's visual art or fashion or anything, find a way to make money off of that passion and make it sustainable and long lasting. And so, you know, even if it's parents for kids who are, you know, 5 years old and got an interest in Legos, like, how do you nurture this interest to a point where they get interested in engineering and mechanical engineering and build on top of that? Or if it's, you know, kids who you just know are great at numbers and things, like, how do they get into statistics and actually loving the process of dealing with numbers and doing that? And so it's an endless amount of possibilities, and it's an endless amount of ways to learn stuff. We're in this digital age where you can pretty much learn anything from YouTube up to a certain point. And, you know, the internet is just such an endless and vast resource. And so I would really say, make sure that if it's something that you're interested in, you dedicate 110% to it and you give it your all. And also understand that it's okay if you don't end up doing that for a career, or if you find out along the process that this isn't what you think is meant for you. At least you're not going through life living in that what if standpoint and kind of beating yourself up for not at least pursuing those interests and those goals. And so, you know, in summary, I just say, make sure that what you're doing at the end of the day is fulfilling for you. And if it's not, you know, check yourself and kind of reevaluate, and then figure out how to make those things that you're passionate about what you do day in and day out to support yourself. Again, thank you all for tuning in to Consistent Network and watching Consistent. Alongside myself has been so many folks who I grew up with and who are peers to me, who I've also seen on this show. And so I encourage y'all to not only watch mine, but check out these other ones, because it's a lot of important stories being told in a raw and authentic way that y'all should check out.